Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 2 of Quarantine Comics. This has been a fun one. I have actually gotten quite a few recommendations for things to read, including what I'll be reviewing today is actually one of the ones is my recommendation from the Facebook group Gay League. So I'm going to actually start off with the thing that's going to stay in my collection forever, and that is actually Invisible Woman, written by Mark Waid. In this, you really get to see a growth of Sue Storm's character in a way that you really have never seen it before. She really, I always feel like Sue has been defined by her relationships. You know, she's a wife, she's a mother, she's a sister, she's a teammate, she's a surrogate mother. She does all of these things that make her who other people depend on. But you don't really get to see her by herself. And I really applaud Waid for doing a story that's minus the rest of the crew. For me, the absolute favorite thing I got to see in this was actually her use her powers in very interesting ways. You know, you would think somebody with the ability to turn invisible would be perfect for espionage, and you know what? You're right. And the way that Mark Waid wrote this was just really stellar. Just such a stellar way of doing this. He layered in this story of flashback and current, so you got to see really a growth in the character. And a code be pushed to the edge of it could go, which I've only ever seen Batman written that good with on a code of killing. My favorite sequence in this is she is chasing somebody, and in order to keep track of them, she is actually turning rooftops invisible, and you can see her following this guy. All while this is going on, she is maintaining a force field underneath of a motorcycle. So the amount of concentration it would take to do this is just stellar, but it also shows just how amazing and strong of a character Sue Richard Storm can be. The second book I am actually reviewing today, and this one is the new title, and it's only gotten one issue out so far, and that is Amethyst. Now, I really love Amethyst as a character. I've followed her for close to a decade now, since the New 52 run, and I've went back to her earlier runs as well. The first thing you're really hit with in this is definitely not the same Amethyst as who is in Young Justice. And that's kind of cool to me. I like the thoughts of, in this vast multiverse that is DC Comics, that you actually get the ability to see two gem worlds, and how they can potentially intermingle with each other is exciting to me. What's more than that, I really liked how the writer put a lot of humor into the writing and still made it really feel like young DC. I said in my first video how I really like young DC because it represents a unity. They're always ready for a team up, and I think that's just an amazing thing. Amethyst is right there with this. By the end of this, she gets a cool sidekick, and you just get to see her break down with somebody else a little bit. And the humor in this is very good. My favorite sequence involves a bit of humor where Amethyst, attacks this gigantic caterpillar-looking thing that looks scary when you think about it, and then you realize it's just a defense mechanism and actually has a micro mouth, and that's just really cute to me. This did not come without a few drawbacks for me. This Gem World doesn't feel exactly like Gem World to me. It's a little too populated. It's a little too foreign as far as the plants. It doesn't really feel like a magical other area. It's a little too sciencey. A little too Star Trek planet, if you will. Uh, but I feel like it might grow on me. It is still the very first issue, so we will see. And then that leads me on to number 3. Now, this was a recommendation, and this is the Mark Waid run on the Flash number 0. And this was recommended by Jason Roth over on the Gay League. And I have never actually read this. I read some Impulse whenever I first got into comics, and I got a kind of an understanding of that 90s Flash era, and frankly, I always thought Wally West was a little bit of a jerk in it. I just did. I felt like he held himself to such a high standard. Now I'm a little different on it because I feel like Wally and Barry and Bart, they bring their own special flavor to the Flash, and I kind of like that. I like the fact that it's not just blank 2.0 or just a reiteration. For this actual issue, you get to see the Flash stuck in like this weird time stream where he's being pushed and pulled in different directions. Goes back to just last Tuesday, and then he goes all the way back to whenever he was a kid. And he really gets to signify what he feels is one of the pushing points to make him the Flash. He keeps on talking about this stranger came into his life, and told him he would be special. And it was all very prophetic, made you think it was a prophecy that was going to happen. Now, with this, my favorite sequence in here is actually when he realizes this stranger that changed his life, this stranger that made him think that anything was possible and he might one day grow up to be the Flash, was himself. It's written and drawn in such a perfect way that you know that deep down he knew he had to do it, and he really didn't quite know how to do it. But it was very brilliant and beautiful. It was a very beautiful sequence, if you ask me. I think that especially Wally always, to me, felt like the weight of the world was on his shoulders a little too much. Nightwing has that too. A lot of the Teen Titans do as well. I feel like the weight of the world is always pushing down on them because they have to live up to who they can be and live up to who their mentors were. So writer spotlight for this episode is going to be Mark Waid. He is a writer that I absolutely adore. When he takes on a project and he puts a little bit of passion into it, it really does show and it really does shine. I'll give you the first thing I ever read with Mark Waid, which was Kingdom Come. Now, Kingdom Come is one of my favorite things that I've read because it gives you this delicious sense of legacy, and that's what made me fall in love with the DC Universe, was legacy. And I feel like he knew how to write that, and he knew how to write that in here as well with The Flash. And then you go to him now with something like Invisible Woman, and he's taking these characters that are so iconic and old. I mean, they've been around a long time, and he makes them feel fresh by just adding a dash of something different. Invisible Woman plus espionage, or even if you just want to put Invisible Woman minus the rest of the Fantastic Crew, is just delicious, and he knows how to do it. Okay, so that was Quarantine Comics.